Let me tell you something right off the bat. There's a special place in hell for people who try to steal a man's peace in his own home. And if you've ever tangled with a certain breed of HOA president, you know exactly what I mean. Patricia Green didn't even bother to knock before strutting up onto my porch, chin held high, eyes full of that smug, I own this block confidence. She looked at me like I was the dirt on her shoe. I'm afraid you're in violation of the HOA's regulations, she announced, all syrup and daggers, waving a stack of papers like they were gospel. If you don't fix your yard by next week, you'll be facing a hefty fine, maybe even a lien, if you refuse to comply. You know that feeling when you're supposed to be scared, but something in you just snaps and you think, not today. I took a step closer, lowered my voice till it was just a thread between us. You've been using the master key to enter my home, haven't you, Patricia? There it was, a flicker, her eyes narrowing, just a hair of that little mask slipping for half a second. That's none of your business, Adam. I almost laughed. Oh, I think it is, I said, steadying myself against the railing, letting her chew on that. I installed the security system in this neighborhood. I know exactly where that key's been used, and I know for a fact it wasn't authorized. So if you want to keep your job, I'd rethink your strategy. She bristled but didn't move. You're bluffing. Nobody's going to believe you over the HOA. I stared her down, cool as a January wind. You want to test that? I'd be more than happy to show the data in court. You ever get that rush, that little charge of adrenaline when you finally stand up to the bully? That was me. This wasn't just any house. My father built this place with his bare hands. And every time I see those flower beds Patricia kept griping about, I think of him kneeling in the dirt, making something beautiful for his family. Those beds are the last thing he ever worked on, and I'll be damned if I let anyone tear that down just to feel powerful. Patricia turned with one last cold smile and stormed off the porch. But I could tell this wasn't over, not even close. Her letters kept piling up after that, each one more shrill and desperate than the last. Fines for grass height, warnings about unsightly mulch, threats of legal action. It was like they were trying to grind me down, hoping I'd snap first. But I wasn't alone. You hear things, neighbors whispering about surprise inspections, about fines for things nobody remembers being a rule. The HOA didn't just want compliance, they wanted control. One evening, I walked across the street to see Jack, the old-timer who'd been here since they first laid pavement. Jack, you got a minute? He looked up from his porch swing, eyebrows raised. Sure, Adam. Patricia been snooping again. I nodded. She's been using the master key, right? Jack let out a sigh, glancing up and down the street like a man checking for ghosts. It's been happening for months. They come in, poke around, leave some violation slip. Folks are scared to talk, afraid they'll be next. The HOA wanted us divided, nervous, looking over our shoulders. That's how they stayed in power. They're going to take it to court, right? Jack asked. You going to fight? I looked him dead in the eye. I will. I can't let them bulldoze my father's legacy. And I meant every word. I wasn't just fighting for a patch of grass. This was about family, about the only real thing I had left of my dad. Now let me tell you this. Fight doesn't just wear you down, it wears down everyone you love. Rachel, my wife, always tried to keep the peace. She hated seeing me wrapped up in this, hated how tense the house had gotten. One night after we put Ben to bed, she just sat there at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around her mug, not looking at me. You know Ben's scared, right? She whispered. He hears us talking, hears you yelling outside. I can't keep pretending this isn't breaking us. That hit me like a brick. I reached for her hand, wishing I could promise it would all blow over. I'm not pretending, Rach. But if I give up, what does that say to Ben? What does that do to Dad's memory? She looked at me, tears and fire both in her eyes. Just don't let this fight take you from us too. That's when I realized I wasn't just defending a house. I was defending the peace inside it. But Patricia wasn't done. Nope, she doubled down. Fines turned into threats of foreclosure. Then one morning, a security officer showed up, badge gleaming, fresh out of some rent-a-cop academy. Mr. Parker, the HOA president, has asked me to conduct an inspection. He said, eyes darting everywhere but mine. You're not coming in without a warrant, I said flat. Tell Patricia to talk to my lawyer. He stammered and backed off, but I could feel the stakes rising. Patricia wanted to break me. Instead, she gave me all the rope I needed to hang her. I spent days digging through old HOA docs, reading inspection logs, combing security reports. That's when I found it Patricia's signature time and again on orders to use the master key, sometimes when nobody was home, sometimes with no complaint filed at all. One entry made my blood run cold. Inspection, due to resident complaint on a weekend I'd taken Ben camping. She'd gone in with no reason, no warning. That was it, the smoking gun. Rachel came clean, too. She'd seen Patricia with a little handheld device scanning her way right past our security system. She said it was a precaution, but I knew it wasn't right. That was the last piece I needed. We weren't paranoid, we were targets. With every new detail, my anger sharpened into resolve. I called my lawyer, laid it all out. I've got evidence of illegal entry, witness testimony, and I'm ready to go public. He warned me it'd get messy, but I didn't care. It's not about the flower bed anymore, I said. It's about stopping them from doing this to anyone else. We built a case, airtight, bulletproof sworn statements, logs, photos. I went door to door sharing the story with neighbors. Some were scared, but Jack was first to stand with me. Let's end this, he said, voice shaking but strong. More and more people joined in, some with stories of their own. The power was shifting. Patricia had ruled by fear, but now folks realized she was more vulnerable than she let on. The board meeting felt like a showdown in a Western, all eyes on us tension you could slice with a butter knife. Patricia sat up front, smug but twitchy, tapping the table, eyes flicking to the clock. When it was my turn, I laid out every last shred of proof, unauthorized entries, logs, the whole ugly mess. The room went dead quiet. This is what's been happening behind your backs, I said. Your privacy, your home's all for her control. Patricia tried to shout me down, but this time I just held up the papers. You don't have to believe me, look for yourself. Jack stood and spoke for all of us. We're not afraid anymore. The room erupted. One by one, neighbors stood up, sharing their own run-ins with Patricia, their own moments of fear and outrage. For the first time, the community felt like, a community. Patricia's face went white. The board tried to scramble, but the dam had burst. She resigned within a week. The master key confiscated, new rules drawn up by the people who actually lived here. We rebuilt one barbecue, one block party, one apology at a time. Folks who used to hide behind curtains started waving from their lawns again. One evening, just as the sun was dropping behind the maples, Ben handed me a little paper airplane and said, "Look, Dad, I made it fly." Rachel stood beside me, and for the first time in a long time, we weren't waiting for the other shoe to drop. We could breathe. So yeah, that's what happens when you take a stand. Sometimes you get bruised, sometimes you scare your own wife and son half to death, but sometimes you win too. You fight for more than just property lines. You fight for your family, your community, your father's legacy. And when you finally get to breathe easy, it's worth every late night, every gray hair. So tell me, have you ever stood up to a bully and taken your life back? Do you think HOAs ever have a right to that kind of power? Or is it always about control? Drop your story or your 2 cents in the comments. Let's hear where you're watching from. And if you want more tales of ordinary folks fighting back, you know what to do.